Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now let's get started. I'm Riley Hart, former reporter for the Daily Lantern. Still breathing, still searching. I'm about 20 miles west of what used to be Rivercrest, Ohio. The town's husk is visible from the overpass, a sprawl of boxy rooftops coated in grey ash, warped metal signs, and collapsed power lines weaving across cracked pavement like dead vines. There's a rumor I've been chasing. Traded a half tin of dog food to a group of scavengers outside Toledo for the tip. One of them claimed to hear music, actual singing, from beneath the rubble of the old Rivercrest Mall. Said the place was long looted, half collapsed, and completely infested months ago. But the voice came from deep below, a girl's voice, steady and clear. Not a scream, a song. It's probably nothing, but most things worth finding out here start with a probably nothing. Bailey's at my side, ears pinned, nose twitching. We took shelter in a hollowed-out gas station last night. She didn't bark once, but didn't sleep either. Too quiet. Not undead quiet, but human quiet, the dangerous kind. When the wind changes, I can smell the mold rising from the mall, even from here. Rot and stagnant water soaked into concrete bones. The air feels like it's been still too long. I've got my pack, 1 bottle of water left, a crowbar, and 6 rounds for the old revolver. That's enough. Has to be. The main road into the parking lot is blocked by caved-in asphalt and 2 rusted-out school buses. Bailey skirts around them with her usual low patience, staying off the pavement, staying low. I follow her lead. Every step echoes against the flattened cars and hollow windows. A crow calls overhead, then goes silent. No moans, no movement, just the smell. The mall's western wall has collapsed entirely. Rain must have done most of the work, split open the roof, sent glass panels crashing down into the food court like jagged teeth. I step through a gap in the fencing, careful not to crunch the broken plastic underfoot. There's a gutted security kiosk toppled near the entrance. A calendar inside is still turned to April. I don't remember what day it is now. I stopped counting sometime in the 6th month. Inside, the first floor is flooded ankle deep. Rainwater probably mixed with filth. Bright yellow signs still say wet floor, like someone thought it would matter. I wade through slowly. Bailey waits at the edge, growling low, not at anything I can see but at the water itself. Half the stores are stripped bare. One still has mannequins posed in the window, their heads missing. Another has graffiti sprayed across the gate. Taken, don't come back. The food court stinks worst of all. Fryers never turned off, grease turned to sludge, rodents long gone. Someone made camp in a corner booth once. Old blanket, burnt out battery lantern, 2 empty cans of green beans. No sign of who. And then I hear it, echoing faintly down the service corridor behind the former Sparrows. A voice, small, singing. Bailey freezes. Her head tilts. Then she looks at me. I'm not imagining it. The acoustics of the ruined mall make it hard to place, but it's coming from below. The tune is unfamiliar, almost improvised. It wavers but doesn't crack. The kind of song you'd sing to yourself just to keep your mind whole. I head toward the corridor, carefully stepping over broken tiles. The singing cuts off as soon as I move past the doorway. Silence rolls in. Not a breath. Bailey growls again. There's a metal stairwell, the kind used by maintenance crews, partially hidden behind collapsed shelving. It leads down into the mall's substructure. I didn't even know malls had basements like this. Maybe for utilities. Maybe storage, or maybe something older. I hold the flashlight tight. The beam flickers once. Batteries are going, but still works. I test each step before putting weight on it. Water drips from somewhere above, striking metal with a hollow plink. Down here, it smells like mildew and rust, but not death. Not yet. Halfway down, I see it. Faint childish handwriting scrawled on the wall in purple chalk. Go slow or you fall. Then below that, watch for trip string. I freeze, scan with the flashlight. There, at shin height stretched across the stairwell, A length of black fishing line, nearly invisible. Clever. Deadly, if you're running. Someone down here knows how to defend themselves. I step over the line and descend slowly. Bailey follows, stiff-legged, breathing hard through her nose. At the base, the stairwell opens into a corridor. Low ceiling, concrete walls. One emergency light still flickering with weak orange glow. There are more chalk marks on the floor. Arrows, symbols, some drawn with sticks, others in crayon or smudged lipstick. I recognize the pattern. These are wayfinding signs. Children made these. I whisper aloud, just in case someone's listening. Not here to hurt anyone. I just heard the singing. No reply. Then, after a long pause, a voice, young, maybe 12 or 13, echoes back from the dark. How many bullets do you have? Not the question I expected. 6, I say, but I don't need to use them. More silence. Then, do you have clean water? A bottle. I'll trade it for the story. That's all I want. Another long pause. Then I see a flashlight blink once, then disappear behind a pillar up ahead. Like a signal. Bailey stays close as I move forward. We pass what used to be an employee break room, converted into something else now. A curtain of bedsheets serves as a door. Inside, I see mattresses made from cut-up display foam, old cereal boxes, and drawings tacked to the walls. Stick figures holding hands. One shows a large dog with big ears and a note that says, "We like dogs." That's promising. Another voice calls softly, this one higher, maybe a younger girl. "He has a dog. That's a good sign." Then finally, a face appears. A girl steps from behind a vending machine, holding a slingshot in one hand and a flashlight in the other. She wears a puffy purple jacket, 2 sizes too big, and a bike helmet with stickers peeling off. Her eyes are serious, too serious for someone that age. "I'm Maya," she says. "You're not with the adults, right? Not like the ones who tried to trade us." I shake my head. "No, I'm not with anyone. Just me and the dog." She nods slowly, then turns her head and whistles once, a strange trill like a bird call. Another light flicks on, then another. They step out of the shadows. 5 of them total, 4 kids and 1 teen, maybe 17 at most, each armed with makeshift weapons, broom handles, curtain rods, even a sharpened umbrella. Their faces are thin, not starving, but clearly rationing. They've built something down here, a place, a system, and they've survived. The teenager doesn't speak right away. He watches me with the kind of stillness you usually only see in people who've seen something they were too young to understand. His shirt has holes under both arms, and his right hand is wrapped in gauze. He nods toward a side hallway, says nothing, and turns his back like he expects me to follow without question. I do. Bailey stays tight to my side, her paws silent on the concrete. The smaller kids whisper something as we pass. The girl with the stick, maybe 6 or 7, asks one of the others if I brought the food dog. The older boy hears her but doesn't react. We pass through a narrow corridor covered in torn advertisements and broken glass panels, the kind that used to hold maps and directories. Someone's drawn over them in crayon and marker, creating an entirely new guide. Arrows leading to safe zones, sleep chambers, quiet spots. It's a child's logic layered over a collapsed adult world. A society built by instinct and necessity. Maya walks beside me again, holding her slingshot low. She explains as we walk. They came down here in pieces, not as one group. Some were hiding with families when the upper floors caved in. Others escaped through the loading docks when the military pushed people out. At first it was chaos, screaming, smoke, people fighting for elevators that never worked. But those who couldn't leave, who hid deep enough and stayed quiet enough, eventually found one another. Some were left behind on purpose, some by accident. A few came back on their own, realizing the world outside had nothing left to offer them. They made a pact early on, Maya says. No adults unless voted on. No one brings in the infected. No shouting. And above all, share everything, especially the stories. The main chamber comes into view. It's where the old maintenance substation used to be. judging by the rusted breaker boxes along the back wall and a collapsed tangle of copper conduits spilling like veins across the ceiling. In the center, they've built a fort of old display counters, security barriers, and what looks like parts of a jungle gym dragged down from the mall's indoor play area. Blankets hang like curtains. Inside, battery-powered lanterns glow warm orange. 2 more kids sit cross-legged on a tarp, sorting through a small pile of cans, crackers, and something vacuum-sealed. One of them is drawing while the other counts with his lips, organizing everything into columns. Efficient, practiced. The older boy finally speaks as he kneels by a crate and pulls out an old AM/FM radio, missing its antenna. "I'm Travis. Maya's the one who keeps us alive. I just make sure the lights stay on." He says it without humor or false modesty. Just fact. Maya shrugs and sits near the edge of the tarp, her legs crossed, the slingshot beside her now like a belt you forget you're wearing. She gestures for me to sit on a milk crate across from them. I do, setting my recorder between us without a word. Bailey curls up by my foot, nose twitching but calm. Maya starts talking first. There's no ceremony, no prompting. She speaks like someone who's waited a long time to unload the weight of what she's seen. Not because she expects it to be believed, but because she doesn't want to forget it. She describes the day the mall fell, the second week after the news stopped. That day, dozens of people poured into Rivercrest Mall thinking it would be safer than the streets. The gates were already down, the big glass doors chained shut, but some men with axes forced them open. Maya and her little brother Corey were with their mother. She had worked at the salon on the second floor. They tried to reach her old store, thinking maybe some supplies had been left behind, but looters had already come through, shelves smashed, clippers and tools gone. They ran with the rest of the crowd as the screaming began. At first, no one knew what started it. Gunfire in the parking lot. Someone bitten in the back hallway near the pet store. People panicked, shoved each other, pushed over kiosks. When the first infected came through the smashed east doors, there was no defense. Security guards were already gone. Some people tried to fight. Others just screamed. Maya and Corey ducked into a cleaning closet and didn't move for 6 hours. When they came out, the upper floor had partially collapsed from a fire. Smoke still filled the air. Everything was red. Corey didn't talk for 3 days. She found other kids little by little. Some she knew from school. Others just appeared like ghosts from the dark. A boy named Denny had been living in the parking garage elevator for a week with his aunt before she vanished. A girl named Ray arrived barefoot carrying a stray cat. The cat's gone now. Ray still keeps the collar in her coat. The older ones started organizing, building safe zones, laying traps. Travis rigged a battery bank using parts from a mattress showroom's massage chairs. He figured out how to route the mall's old wiring to charge walkie-talkies using hand cranks and solar strips they scavenged from the roof before it collapsed completely. They even managed to pull an old vending machine down here, cracked it open, and salvaged everything from cough drops to canned iced tea. That stash lasted almost 2 months. Now it's mostly whatever they can pull from drain tunnels or trade for with strangers who pass near the entrance. Maya pauses when she mentions the traders. Her face tightens. Travis sets the radio down carefully, as if remembering something heavy. "They came through 2 months ago," Maya says, quieter now. "Said they were looking for supplies. Offered dried meat and matches. One of them gave me a bar of soap. I didn't know what they really wanted until one of the girls went missing." Bailey raises her head slightly. I sit still. "Her name was Lottie," Travis says, voice dull. "She was 8. We found her coat by the storm grate 2 days later. Never found her." They don't say what happened next, but I can guess. The way Maya grips her knees, the way Travis glances at a length of pipe tucked behind a pillow near the entrance. I offer the water bottle. Maya doesn't reach for it. One of the younger boys takes it and hands it to her like it's something sacred. She splits it carefully into 4 plastic cups marked with permanent marker lines. She drinks last. I ask why they haven't left. The world outside might offer something better. Tower 17 perhaps. Small enclaves forming. Others like me passing news across state lines. Travis answers with a question. Would you drag 7 kids across a city full of the infected, raiders, and no maps? Maya adds, And if we go out there and something happens to one of them, it's on us. Down here, we know the rules. We made them. Nobody takes what isn't given. Nobody screams. Nobody disappears. The room is quiet after that. Eventually, Maya pulls out a notebook. More scribbles, some lists, a few pages with watch schedules, ration logs, and what looks like codes. She flips to the last few pages and shows me a hand-drawn layout of the lower levels. It's surprisingly accurate, labeled, mapped. She's tracked where the water seeps worst, where the best hiding spots are, which doors to barricade in case of breach. There's even a schedule for rotating sleep shifts so no one is left alone for too long. We've had some scares, she says. One time something got in through the drainage access. It wasn't walking like the others. It was crawling, fast, didn't make any sound until it was 3 feet from Travis. He holds up his bandaged hand. It got me before I got it. We burned it in the pipe tunnel, but I didn't get sick, just teeth marks. He saw the look on my face and clarified, didn't break skin. I nod, letting the silence stretch. They're smart, smarter than I expected. Resourceful, yes, but more than that. They've adapted in a way most adults can't. They aren't trying to recreate the world. They're creating one that fits what's left of it. They sing not because it's pretty, but because it keeps them sane. They draw pictures because it reminds them that someone might care to see them. They ask questions that adults would find odd, but I realize they're the right questions. Not why did this happen, but how do we not become like the ones who caused it? I stay that night in a small supply alcove near their sleeping area. They give me a blanket and half a protein bar. I give them 2 fire-starting tablets and a pack of batteries. I offer to tell them a story in return. Maya agrees, but asks that it not be about the outbreak. So I tell them about my dog Bailey before the fall, about how she was abandoned in a parking garage, and how I found her whimpering beside a locked SUV, how she growled at me the whole time I fed her half a sandwich, how she followed me anyway. There's something about telling a story that isn't soaked in tragedy that brings oxygen back into a space. You don't notice you're suffocating until the pressure lifts. That's what it felt like in that alcove. I didn't even notice Travis had sat down across the hall until I saw the glint of his screwdriver handle poking from his sleeve. Bailey let him pass. She must have sensed something in him that didn't register as a threat. He sat against the wall, not speaking, just listening with his eyes on the ground. When I got to the part where Bailey stole an entire granola bar from my pack and then acted innocent about it for a full day, Maya actually laughed. It was dry and short, but it was real. That sound could have pushed back the dark outside for miles if the mall had any windows left. Later, after the kids fell asleep in their makeshift hammocks and foam nests, I sat with Maya a little longer near the emergency stairwell. She traced lines in the dust with her finger, patterns that looked like circuitry or radio signals. She told me she used to be good at math before everything changed. Her mum always said that if she couldn't find her way with people, she could always follow the numbers. It's hard to know what to say to a kid who's grown up too fast without sounding like you're trying too hard. So I don't offer advice. I just nod and listen. That's all she really needs anyway. Someone not correcting her or asking if she misses school, or telling her she's strong when she doesn't feel like it. Before we turn in, she tells me again that she wants me to see the theater. It's deeper in, past the broken escalators, and near a service corridor that partially flooded back in the 4th month. They've drained most of it, she says, but the air still smells like battery acid and mildew. That's where they keep the voices, a collection of drawings, letters, and a few working audio cassettes they've scavenged over time. Some from looted stores, others from purses or backpacks left behind. It's their library, she says, their church, their memory. When I wake the next morning, the mall is dim. A couple of lanterns still flicker near the sleeping spots. Bailey is already awake, ears tilted toward the hallway. I listen and hear the soft scuff of Travis making rounds. He's got a discipline to his movements, deliberate and quiet. The others stir one by one. No one rushes. There's a rhythm here, an understanding. Breakfast is dry cereal from a crumpled Ziploc bag and water doled out from marked bottles. No one complains. Even the youngest, the girl with the too big hoodie and tangled braids, accepts her portion with a nod and moves on. Maya appears a few minutes later, fastening a headlamp around her helmet and gesturing for me to follow. No dramatic speeches, no grand introduction, just a glance and a path. We passed through corridors lined with old retail shelving, bits of signage, and crumpled promotional displays for phones and sneakers. Everything is softened by dust and silence. It's like walking through the memory of a civilization, not the ruins of it. A place where commerce died and storytelling took its place. Eventually, we reach the far end of the structure, where a service tunnel descends into what feels like the underbelly of the mall. Pipes run overhead, tagged with fading labels, sprinkler mains, power conduits, HVAC bypass lines. The floor is tacky and uneven. Mold grows in slow spirals across the cinderblock walls. Maya steps around puddles with ease. I follow her prints. We reach a steel fire door, warped but still hinged. She taps it twice with a small metal bolt, then waits. A moment later, it creaks open from the inside. A boy answers, barely taller than her shoulder, wiry, maybe 11 years old. He holds a flashlight in one hand and a paintball gun in the other. His expression relaxes when he sees Maya. No words, just a nod, then a shuffle backward to let us in. The theater is more intact than I expected. One of those small 5-screen mall setups that hadn't been updated since the early 2000s. The carpeting is swampy in places, and the air smells like old popcorn oil and damp drywall. But it's stable. The ceiling's caved in slightly near screen 4, but the main room, screen 2, is lit with strung Christmas lights powered by a car battery and what looks like parts of an old bicycle rigged as a pedal generator. The voices are arranged in rows of stacked plastic crates and cracked display bins. Each one holds artifacts, drawings folded with care, notebooks filled edge to edge, cassettes wrapped in tissue or tucked into scavenged cases. Some are labeled, others are cryptic. One container is marked, "Mother's Voice, only play once a week," in green marker. Another simply says, "Riley?" A name that makes my breath catch until I see that it's addressed from one kid to another, not to me. Maya leads me to the center of the room where a flat table has been built from plywood and mall signage. She lays out a stack of drawings and unspools one of the tapes onto a small hand crank player. The whir of the wheels is soft, familiar. I close my eyes as the static gives way to a trembling voice. It's a child reciting something, maybe a poem or prayer. The words are halting, interrupted by sniffles. It's not performative, not polished, just raw memory committed to tape. I open my eyes and find that Maya is looking at me, not for approval, but for recognition. "This is how we remember," she says, "when we can't sleep, or someone gets scared, or when someone doesn't come back. We come here and listen. We draw what we remember. We write the parts we want to keep." There are hundreds of pieces. Some are just crude stick figures and scribbles, but others show incredible detail. Maps, faces, buildings lost to time. One is a portrait of a woman holding a baby, drawn in ballpoint pen with careful shading. On the back it says, "Last time I saw her she smiled. It takes everything I have not to cry." Maya pulls one final item from a small lockbox, an old phone with no power, the kind that flips open. She says it belonged to a boy named Aaron, who left with a group that promised safety in exchange for supplies. He never came back. But the phone holds pictures. They guard it like a relic. Every so often, they try to charge it with jury-rigged solar panels just to see the images again. Not because they know the people in them, but because it reminds them that faces existed once. That the world wasn't always just survival and silence. We sit there a long time. The kids filter in, one by one. No one speaks unless it's to announce a new drawing or to request a specific tape. A girl named Junie asks Maya to play the one with the woman reading a bedtime story. Another boy, Tucker, hands me a folded piece of paper with a drawing of Bailey on it. I recognize the shape, her ears, the way she curls her paws when she sleeps. He must have watched her carefully. I thank him. He shrugs, then retreats behind a curtain of hanging beads. Later, Travis enters with news. Someone's near the south maintenance stairwell. Not infected, human. He saw a flashlight. 2 quick blinks, a code they once used with other friendly scavengers. Maya stands immediately. Her demeanor shifts. No longer just the quiet leader of a child-made civilization. She becomes tactical. "We rotate watch," she says. "We don't all run. We don't panic." She gestures to two of the older kids to gear up and nods to Travis to check the comm panel. I watch as they move like clockwork, each with a role. I want to offer help, but I know this is their home. I'm still a guest. I ask only, "Is it someone you know?" Maya doesn't answer right away. Her eyes flick toward the small console rigged together with wires, tape, and pieces of an old radio faceplate. Travis adjusts a knob, his movements quick and silent, his fingers trembling just enough to betray that calm exterior. A moment later, there's a crackle of static and a faint chirp. 3 short bursts, 1 long. A code. Not random. Not some fluke of atmospheric interference. Someone knows the signal. Travis glances back. "That was one of ours," he says, and the quiet tension in the theater deepens. He doesn't mean one of the kids still here. Maya finally speaks, her voice low, barely audible above the quiet hum of the hand crank lights. "If it's real, then he made it back. He found the frequency again." They move fast after that. Maya hands out positions. One of the older girls disappears into the maze of storage crates and re-emerges with a crude field pack, duct taped together, filled with what looks like energy bars, a screwdriver, and a water bottle marked with the name Evan. Travis tightens the straps on his vest and tucks a rusted folding knife into his sleeve. No one has to ask what to do. Everyone here has been drilled on how to respond when someone makes contact. The air grows heavy, not from fear, but from anticipation. Bailey senses it too. Her head rises, her ears tilting forward as if waiting for a signal. I stay near the edge of the theater, out of the way, but watching. Every movement these kids make tells a story. Of practice, of hard-earned structure, of a code they built themselves when no one else gave them one. Maya calls for quiet, then nods to Travis. He lifts the mic connected to the panel, clears his throat once, and speaks softly but clearly. "If this is Evan, say what we left in the locker at 2B. There's a pause, static. Then a voice crackles through. Young, male, tired. Half a pack of gum, and a drawing of a dog eating spaghetti. The room doesn't cheer, no gasps or cries. Just one long, slow exhale shared by everyone. Maya closes her eyes for a beat, then nods again. Confirm location and status. I'm outside stairwell 3, south corner, alone. I've got a sprain, but I'm clean. I got out. I brought something. What's something? Travis asks, his voice flat, skeptical but not hostile. There's hesitation. A box. I'll explain when I'm in. Please don't shoot. The entire exchange takes less than a minute. Then the plan moves forward. Maya sends 2 kids ahead with flashlights and whistles, their path a precise sequence of steps and hiding spots I couldn't navigate even with a map. Travis gives the okay for one of the backup power strips to be rerouted to light the approach corridor. Just enough light to guide Evan in, not enough to alert anything outside. 10 minutes later, he appears. At first I only see his silhouette, limping slightly, holding a small cardboard box wrapped in plastic. His face is sunburned and pale in the dim light, and he walks like someone who hasn't been on solid ground in weeks. The others greet him not with shouts but with silent gestures, a touch on the arm, a quick squeeze of the shoulder. He sets the box down and drops to one knee, not from drama, but sheer fatigue. Maya crouches beside him, her hand hovering over his back without touching. "You're really back," she says, and only then does her voice crack slightly. "I didn't think I'd make it," Evan mutters, "but I had to." They bring him water, gently coax him into a chair made from an old theater seat frame. His backpack, shredded and muddy, is left by the door. Bailey sniffs it once, then retreats back to my side. Evan sees me, registers the recorder still clipped to my belt, and looks to Maya. "He's okay," she says. "He trades stories, gave us batteries." Evan nods, too tired to question it. After a moment he opens the box. Inside are papers, hundreds of them, folded, damp in places but mostly intact. The top sheet is labeled in red pen, City Shelter 12C, medical notes, evac orders. Beneath it are maps, rosters, hand-drawn layouts of emergency response centers. Some are copies, others are clearly originals, maybe taken from desks or filing cabinets. The final folder is heavier, containing what looks like a bound incident report, complete with hospital stamps and handwritten annotations. "I found it in a basement office," Evan says, voice steadier now. "It used to be a mobile command center for evac routes, quarantine protocols. They left everything behind. I think this proves they knew it was never going to work, that they gave up before anyone ever had a chance to be saved." He pauses. "I didn't want us to just be stories. I wanted us to have facts too. Proof." The room falls quiet. Maya carefully lifts one of the maps, spreading it across the makeshift table. It shows Rivercrest and the surrounding county, marked with red and yellow zones, numbered gates, and notes like, "Overwhelmed. Do not redirect." No one speaks for a while. Then Maya sets the paper down and says something I'll never forget. "Now we know we were never supposed to be rescued." There's no anger in her voice, just clarity. For a group of children hidden beneath a ruined mall, this knowledge doesn't destroy them. It confirms what they already suspected, that the adults made decisions, drew lines, and walked away. That what happened above wasn't a collapse. It was abandonment. They take turns examining the box's contents. Some read the reports aloud. Others begin copying down dates and names into their notebooks. Travis pulls out the cassette recorder again and starts recording one of the pages in full, like a town crier documenting the downfall of a city no one remembers. Later, I sit with Evan and listen as he describes his escape. He'd left to follow rumors of a functioning aid station set up in the shell of an old college campus north of the city. By the time he reached it, the gates were shredded and every window smashed. Whoever had been there left in a hurry, or didn't leave at all. He scavenged what he could, slept in a chemistry lab for 3 nights, and finally stumbled across the mobile command post near the stadium's sub-basement. He knew the mall was too far to reach on foot, so he found a scavenger willing to drive him close in exchange for a full canteen and a working flashlight. The scavenger dropped him near the outer zone, then drove off without a word. "I walked the last 7 miles, Evan says, unwrapping a bandage on his ankle. Made it through by hiding under a crashed ambulance for half a day. One of them stood there the whole time. Just stood there. Didn't even moan. Didn't move. Just waited. Like it knew I was there." I ask if he believes the infected are changing. He shrugs. "I think the ones that wait are worse than the ones that run." Maya nods. "The fast ones don't think, but some of the quiet ones, we've seen them too." It chills me more than I want to admit. That night, the atmosphere in the camp shifts. Not exactly hopeful, but more resolved. The kids take turns copying the maps onto safer materials, cloth scraps, laminated menus, anything less fragile than paper. Maya starts drafting a new version of the safe zones based on what Evan brought back. It's meticulous work, and the kids treat it like scripture. Later, Maya and I talk quietly by the theater entrance. She thanks me for listening, for not interrupting, for not trying to fix them. I ask her if she ever plans to leave the mall. She doesn't answer at first. Then she looks toward the hallway that leads to the surface. "If we go together. When we're ready. Not when someone says it's time. That's the difference between surviving and being saved." I don't argue. I just listen. Before I sleep, I record a note for myself, for whoever might hear this tape in the future. This place beneath the mall isn't a shelter. It's a memory vault. A living archive built not by historians or officials, but by the ones left behind. Children who didn't ask to be strong, didn't choose to be forgotten, but who took the silence above and turned it into structure, into voice, into truth. And now, that vault was growing. Evan's return changed the air, not just because of what he carried in that box of reports and maps, but because of what it symbolized. Someone left, made it through the skeletal remains of the city, and came back not broken, but bearing knowledge. In a place like this, that was a miracle. The older kids took turns guarding the box like it was sacred, and Maya started using the documents to update a giant sheet of poster board she kept folded in an old art portfolio. It showed the mall, the surrounding streets, even the sewer access lines and stormwater drains. What had started as a crude sketch was fast becoming a navigational chart, something even professional emergency responders might have envied if any still existed. Bailey and I stayed quiet during most of this, but I watched everything, every crayon mark, every whispered argument about routes, every moment someone paused to look not at the maps, but at each other, and realized they had something to believe in. That night, after the younger ones were asleep, Travis pulled me aside. He asked if I knew anything about radio repeater towers, the kind that used to broadcast regional emergency alerts or military traffic. I told him what I knew, mostly cobbled together from my brief time at Tower 17, and whatever I remembered from covering disaster prep back when the world still held press conferences. He listened closely, and then he asked if I thought any towers might still be operational within 50 miles. I didn't want to lie. Maybe, I said, if someone's still fueling the generator, if the solar rig's intact, and if no one stripped the wiring. He nodded and told me he'd found a blueprint in Evan's folder that showed a secondary comms tower near Interstate 78, not far from the burned-out cinema district. The military had marked it compromised, but the location was still clear. I think we could reach it, he said, if we take 2 bikes, follow the drainage path out to Creekline, and avoid the old interchange. If we can transmit, we can send the archive. At first, I wasn't sure I understood. Send it where? Anywhere, Travis said. Anyone listening. There's got to be someone, and even if it's just static on the other end, at least it won't die down here with us. Maya was hesitant. I could see it in her expression. She didn't want to split the group, even temporarily, but after a long discussion between her, Travis, and Evan, she agreed to send a copy of the archive. Not the original, but a curated version. Key stories, facts, coordinates, sketches, names. She started assembling it the next day. Not everything, but enough to speak for them if none of them ever made it out. I offered to go with them, but they declined. You're a recorder, Maya said, not a courier, and we want you here if something happens, so someone remembers the last part. They left the following afternoon. Travis and Evan on bicycles pieced together from different stores, welded and rewired into something that would pass on open roads. The tunnel exit was cleared by Maya and 2 others in advance, checked for trip hazards and nests. I watched them go from the service ramp behind the south loading dock. Neither boy looked back, just kept pedaling into the thick, white air of late winter haze, their backs shrinking into silhouettes. The next few days felt thinner. The routines held. The morning water check, the rotating lantern cycle, the scavenging teams checking buckets in the broken drain. But the atmosphere was quiet in a way that pressed inward. Maya didn't pace, but her eyes were constantly on the old radio Travis had tuned before he left. Every 2 hours she'd check it, not because she expected to hear them, but because not checking felt worse. On the 3rd night, static changed. It wasn't a voice, just a brief pause in the noise, followed by 5 soft tones, a pattern. Not music, not feedback, a deliberate 5-beat signal, then silence. Maya stood there listening for almost 20 minutes after it ended. Then she turned to me and simply said, "They reached it." From that point on, the entire place shifted. Hope wasn't a vague dream anymore. It had structure. They knew someone had made it to a working transmitter. They knew something had been sent. That gave them permission to imagine a world in which others might hear it. 2 days later, the signal repeated. Same tone pattern, followed by a brief spike that sounded like distorted speech, too warped to understand, but unmistakably human. That night, the kids took turns staying up near the radio, just to listen to the empty space between pulses. One of the younger boys, Lenny, whispered that he thought the machines themselves were trying to talk. "Even if nobody's left up there," he said, "maybe the towers want us to know we're not gone yet." Maya started copying parts of the archive onto cassette. She had 4 blank tapes left, old Maxell and Sony brands from the remains of an electronics store kiosk. She recorded readings of the names they'd saved: Lottie, Deshawn, Briar, Kenley, Maribel, and more. She recorded stories, like the one Ray wrote about the dog she fed with her last slice of bread, and she recorded a log of the group's history, where they'd come from, how they survived, and what they'd seen the world become. Each tape ended with the same line, spoken in Maya's voice. "We are the children under the mall. We remember, and we are still here." I helped her catalog the tapes. I asked if she wanted to include any of my recordings, but she declined gently. "Yours are for later," she said. "Yours are the ones that explain how we were found." I didn't tell her I didn't believe I'd find anyone left to explain it to. But Bailey kept nudging me that week, more than usual. Each time I got quiet or drifted into that still kind of dread that crawls into the bones when you stay too long underground, she'd nudge my hand, or stare at me until I got up and walked a lap around the back corridor. Maybe she knew more than I did about what the body needed. Maybe she just didn't like the silence. The 8th day after the boys left, the mall shook. Not like a quake, not something natural. It was the kind of shudder that comes from a pressure wave, distant, heavy, not near enough to be danger, but close enough to be felt. Maya looked at me. "That was an explosion," she said, "from the old cinema district." Evan had mentioned it, the place where he hid, where the old military evacuation effort fell apart. He said he thought there were still explosives wired to parts of it. Either that, or someone was trying to erase what was left. We waited. Hours passed, static on the radio, no tones, no patterns. Maya didn't say anything, but I saw her writing, slow, careful strokes in the notebook she kept tied to her belt, the one no one else touched. That night, the water filtration station flooded. One of the old pumps gave out, probably from age or the tremor. 3 kids rushed to stabilize it. Bailey barked for the first time in days. Loud, 2 sharp bursts. That was the alarm. I grabbed my recorder and ran after them. Water was spilling from the holding basin in waves, pouring through cracks in the maintenance grates. Not clean, brown and oily. One of the kids, Junie, had slipped trying to reset the valve and was curled against the wall, coughing. I pulled her out while Maya and another girl worked the crank wheel. It screeched like a dying thing, but it turned. Eventually the flood slowed, then stopped. We lost a cache of bottled water, maybe 30% of the clean stock. That night, no one said it, but we all knew. Something was shifting. The mall's bones were aging, and time wasn't on our side. The next morning, a runner returned, but it wasn't Travis. It was a scavenger, mid-20s, limping, unarmed, soaked in sweat and grime. He staggered into the south stairwell with his hands raised and called out in a hoarse voice that he had something for the children. Maya didn't let him in. She spoke through the gate, asked him what he meant. He pulled something from his pack, a blood-stained cloth bundle, and carefully placed it at the threshold. "From the bikes," he said, "from the tower." Then he turned and left without another word. Didn't ask for food, didn't ask for water. Inside the bundle were 2 cassettes, wrapped in duct tape and sealed in a plastic sandwich bag. The first contained a message from Travis. His voice was weak, but clear. He said the tower had worked. They'd broadcast 3 times. He believed the signal reached as far as the Pennsylvania line. But the area was unstable, infested with fast movers, groups of survivors who shot first and never asked questions. On the 3rd night they were spotted. Evan ran. Travis stayed to jam the gate behind him. The scavenger was someone who had helped them reach the road, promised to deliver the tapes if anything went wrong. The second tape was a story. Travis's story. How he came to the mall, what he saw before. How he lost his older brother trying to reach a hospital. How he found Maya and the others. And at the end, his voice shook. Just once. "If anyone hears this," he said, "remember that we didn't just hide. We built something. We made rules. We took care of each other. We didn't wait to be saved. We made it mean something. That has to count." We played it 3 times that night. The 4th time, Maya stopped the tape halfway and placed it in a metal box beside the others. No one questioned her. No one asked to hear it again. The silence that followed wasn't the kind that suffocates. It was the kind that lets something settle. A kind of acceptance that doesn't look like peace, but lives next door to it. Maya sat for a long time after that, cross-legged beside the vault she'd built, staring at nothing, her expression unreadable. Not frozen, not empty, just too full to show. Bailey shifted close to her, lowered her head onto Maya's knee. She didn't flinch, didn't look down. She just rested her hand gently between Bailey's ears and left it there. For the rest of the night, the theater stayed dim. The kids didn't return to their usual stations or start their nightly rotations. Instead, they all stayed in the main room, around the crates and makeshift furniture, not talking, not sleeping. I found myself beside Ray, the girl who once brought a cat through the mall ruins and carried its collar for weeks after it vanished. She had the collar looped around her wrist now, twisting it slowly in her fingers. When I asked if she was okay, she nodded once but didn't speak. She didn't need to. I already knew the answer. The next morning came without warning. The light didn't change down here. Only the shift in routine marked the passage of time. Someone got up and reheated tea. Someone else handed out crackers. But the usual pace, the quiet clockwork flow of this underground world, had slowed. And that's when I realized something had shifted, not just in the group, but in Maya. She wasn't pacing the perimeter or marking notes on her maps. She sat still, surrounded by the things they'd built and kept and recorded, and when I walked over to her and crouched down, she looked at me and said something I hadn't expected. "It's time." That was it. No speech, no preamble, just those two words. I asked her what she meant. She glanced toward the map board, then toward the cache of tapes. "We've told our story," she said. "It's out there now. Travis made sure of that. We can't stay here forever. The mall is breaking. The ceiling's coming down one corridor at a time. The flood killed half our filters, and the last clean water pump is starting to rust." I looked around and saw what she meant. Mold creeping in above the projector room, cracks spider-webbing out across the far wall. Even the string lights had dimmed. 2 of the car batteries they depended on were starting to fail. "I'm not saying we leave today," Maya continued, "but we have to start moving, start planning it, not just surviving, migrating." The word hung in the air like it didn't belong to children. Migrating. Something birds do when the world changes too fast for them to stay. Something people used to do when their land went dry or the war got too close. But it made sense. The mall had been a sanctuary, a foundation, but now it was becoming something else. A tomb for their memories, not their future, and Maya knew it. She knew that staying would only preserve their past. Leaving was the only way to protect what they could still become. Over the next week, they began preparations. Not a rush, not a scramble, just quiet decisions made one at a time, agreed upon by vote, recorded in logbooks. The tapes were duplicated where possible. 2 sets, one for travel, one to stay hidden behind. The walls were marked with coded messages for any who might find the place after. Symbols carved into the corners of door frames, arrows etched into duct covers, all pointing to the archive, and to a note scrawled in 5 languages. We were here, we made it matter. Each child packed differently. Ray brought the collar, a flashlight, and 3 bundles of paper filled with her drawings. Junie packed 5 protein bars, a raincoat, and a small plush whale. Tucker carried a wrench, a sealed compass, and 2 blank notebooks he said were for future stories. Maya packed a folding knife, a toolkit, and a copy of every single map. The metal box of cassettes, wrapped in layers of cloth and tape, would be carried by whoever was strongest each day. Bailey and I helped where we could. I gave them all the supplies I had left, half a bottle of iodine, 3 bandages, a spare can of peaches, and my last box of waterproof matches. I thought about giving Maya the recorder too, but she shook her head. "That's yours. You still have to tell what happens after we're gone." I wanted to say something profound, something she'd remember if this all fell apart tomorrow. But nothing I thought of was better than silence, so I just nodded. 3 nights before they were scheduled to leave, Maya and I climbed up to the mall's upper balcony, the part that had caved in early in the outbreak and now sat open to the stars. The metal beams were twisted into a kind of nest, framing the night sky in jagged silhouettes. It was the first time I'd seen stars from inside the mall, the first time I realized how bright the world still was above the dust. Maya pointed to a patch of sky. "That's Orion," she said. "My mom taught me how to find it. She said when I was scared, I could look for the belt and pretend it was a road leading somewhere better." I asked if she still believed that. She shrugged. "I don't know. she said, "but it helps to look." When we climbed down, Bailey hesitated. Her ears twitched. I froze beside her. A moment later, I heard it too. Distant, muffled. Not a scream, not a growl. Just the unmistakable clang of something heavy being dragged across tile. We moved fast, quietly. The kids had practiced for this. Every hallway was booby-trapped with makeshift alarms. One of them went off near the south loading dock. A string of cans rattled against the wall. Bailey growled low and stood between the hallway and the sleeping chamber. Maya didn't panic. She gave a short whistle and pointed. 2 kids moved to the fallback corridor. The others woke and moved in near silence, clutching packs and tools. The protocols they'd built weren't just theory. They worked. I crept with Maya and Ray toward the service hallway, flashlight off, crowbar ready. We reached the last barricade just in time to see something shuffling in the dark. It wasn't infected. It was a man, middle-aged, barefoot, dragging a golf club behind him. His clothes were shredded, and his mouth moved constantly, but no sound came out. He stared at the ground, then up at us, blinking like we were just more shadows. Maya raised her slingshot but didn't fire. "Sir," I said carefully, "you're inside a shelter. Do you understand where you are?" The man didn't respond. He stepped forward, slow, almost confused. Then his knees buckled. He collapsed like a puppet cut from strings. I reached him first. He was breathing, but barely, fevered, trembling. His hands were scraped raw. When I tried to lift him, he muttered something. "They locked the gates. They locked the gates." It took us hours to stabilize him. The kids had only basic supplies. We gave him water in slow sips and wrapped his feet. Maya kept asking if he had been bitten. He kept shaking his head, whispering the same thing. About gates, about being left outside. By morning, he was lucid enough to say a few full sentences. His name was Peter. He'd come from one of the city's outer safe zones. Said it had fallen a month ago when a truck convoy failed to arrive. He'd tried to reach the mall after hearing a broadcast. Something faint, from a tower near the highway. Travis's signal. That was the final proof. Someone had heard. And Peter, whatever happened to him, wherever he'd come from, was the evidence that the children under the mall weren't just voices echoing in an empty theater. They were a broadcast, a beacon, a ripple that made it across a broken world. On the 12th day, the children left. One by one, they slipped through the maintenance access at dawn, packs tight, movements careful. Bailey and I walked with them as far as the first sewer gate. Maya turned there, gave a small salute, not a wave, not a farewell, just a simple, silent gesture of respect. She didn't say goodbye. None of them did. I stayed behind in the mall for 2 more nights, making sure the final cache was sealed, the messages hidden properly. Then I followed a different path out, north, toward the last place I'd heard rumor of a working transmitter. Before I left, I turned the recorder on one last time in the dark of the theater, sat by the metal box, and spoke softly. If anyone hears this, the children under the mall were real. They lived. They endured. They remembered what the world forgot. And they carried their stories out into it. I don't know where they'll end up, but I know they left as a group, as a family. Not one less than they could spare. That matters. That's what I want remembered. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.